So, let's go to biosecurity. So, ang biosecurity, napaka-importante nito because as we all know, bioterrorism exists. So, possible na yung mga microorganism na inaalagaan natin, possible na manakaw sila and then gamitin sila sa masamang paraan. So, when you say biosecurity, this is a process. And the objective of this process is to prevent the loss, theft, or misuse of microorganism, biological materials, and research-related information. So, this is accomplished by limiting access to facilities, research materials, and information. So, sino lang ba yung mga possible na pumasok sa isang facility? And sino lang, ano ba yung access sa facility na yan? Dapat standardized, diba? To avoid breach of security. So, biosecurity also address procedure and practices to ensure that biological materials and relevant sensitive information remain secure. So, hindi lang yung mismo microorganism are being secured, also the confidential information regarding the microorganism. Kasi nga naman kapag nag-leak dyan na yung microorganism na to ay kaya makapatay ng 100 tao within 1 minute, then possible na kunin niya ng mga terorista. 'Di ba? So, dapat yung mga information na yan, it should always be remain confidential. And also yung location ng laboratory and then how to access the laboratory. Those are example of sensitive information regarding biosecurity. So, tandaan nyo lang, kapag biosecurity, you are protecting the bad bugs from bad people. So, ano ba ang elements of biosecurity program? So, marami siya. The first will be the program management. So, kapag program management, it means that meron ka dapat isang organized structure in terms of the biosecurity program. So, kapag organized structure, it means meron ka mga tao assigned for that and meron kang talagang procedure on how to limit the access in the laboratory. So, in terms of the personnel, you have the chain of command. Kapag chain of command, merong taong in charge and then merong mga staff. And then yung mga staff na yon, they have different role and responsibility to make sure that the laboratory is actually secure. Another thing is, what are the methods to limit the access to the lab? Pwede ba na may dumalaw dyan na mga kaibigan mo? Diba? Hindi po pwede, right? So, dapat yung mga authorized personnel lang, sila lang yung pwedeng pumasok sa laboratory. So, ano yung mga procedure to limit the access sa lab? Actually, hindi lang yung mga when you say limit access in the laboratory, you're not only pertaining to the people from the outside, you're also pertaining to the people in the inside. Kasi hindi lahat ng mga tao, hindi lahat ng mga workers sa lab na yan is pwedeng mayroong access dun sa mga dangerous pathogen. So, sino lang ba among the lab workers, sino lang ang mayroong access doon sa mga dangerous pathogen that you are actually protecting? Right? Those are example of methods to limit the access. Next is the personal management. So, pagdating sa personal management naman, this is now the time for you to identify the role and responsibility of each personnel inside the lab. So, sino ba yung in charge lang sa handling, sino yung in charge sa using, storage, processing, and transport. 'Di ba? So, importante yun. So, hindi lahat ng tao merong access kung saan siya nakatago ang mga dangerous pathogen. So, meron ka lang mga assigned people for that. Kaya nga tinawag na limiting the access. Okay? So, personal and visitor identification, visitor management, access procedure, and reporting of security incident should always be present. So, when you say visitor, sino ba yung mga visitor na pwedeng tanggapin? Pwede ba dyan dumalaw ang mga kaibigan mo? Definitely hindi, diba? Kasi nga, dangerous pathogen laboratory yan. So, yung mga pwede lang na pumasok dyan sa lab na yan, ay yung mga tao that actually is related to the laboratory. Kumbaga, meron silang official business. Kunyari, they are there for testing. So, walang ganong facility sa kanilang lab. Kunyari, tayo mga Pilipino, di ba? Wala tayong specialized na laboratory talaga na level 4, okay, for dangerous pathogen. And then, gusto natin mag-process. Saan tayo pupunta? Punta tayong Japan, di ba? So, tayo yung visitor. Kasi, nasa official business tayo. Kumbaga, yung tao from the Philippines, merong official scientists of the Philippines that will go to another lab in Japan to perform a laboratory test. Okay? So, yun yung example of a visitor. So, di basta-basta. Yung iba naman, yung mga visitor that will inspect the lab, 'di ba? So, dapat meron ka laging official business bago ka pumasok sa mga laboratory niyan. Hindi po pwede yung mga kaibigan mo, kamag-anak mo, etc. Okay? Hindi po pwede. Next is inventory and accountability. So, when you say inventory, it means that you are keeping a record. Meron kang record ng mga dangerous pathogen na yan. So, kapag inventory, Hindi lang yan na meron ka lang record or listahan. Dapat alam mo rin kung nasaan yung mga pathogens na yan. Okay? So again, you must first track the inventory, storage, use, transfer, and destruction of the dangerous biological materials and assets when no longer needed. So, kasama din dyan ang storage. Saan ba siya nakalagay? For example, nakalagay yan sa Ref 1, di ba? Sa Ref 1, you have meron kang listahan ng mga microorganism na nakalagay sa Ref 1. Meron ka rin sa Ref 2, Ref 3, Ref 4, Ref 5. Okay? So, that is what you call the inventory of storage. So, kapag naman kumuha ka ng isang microorganism sa ref na yun, dapat nakalagay din, nakalog din. So, that is what you call the use. Diba? And then, if you're going to actually pull out a microorganism, then transfer it to another facility, dapat meron ka ring record doon. And if you are going to destroy the microorganism for autoclaving, dapat meron ka ring record. So, kapag meron kang record or inventory, hindi lang yan basta listahan at kung saan nakalagay. Dapat merong yung pirma. Nakalagay yung pangalan ng tao na kumuha ng microorganism. Nakalagay yung pangalan ng tao na nag-check ng microorganism at nakapirma siya. So, kapag record kasi, dalawang klase yan. Meron kang hard copy at soft copy. Dapat pareho silang present. So, yung hard copy, dito mo makikita yung mga pirma talaga, physical signature ng mga tao na kumuha. And then, after the hard copy, yung mga hard copy niyan, kailangan naka-scan yan and then naka-record yan sa computer mo. So, you can actually manually encode or just scan. Diba? Basta dapat meron kang hard copy and soft copy lagi ng mga record and inventory. Okay? So, the objective is to know what agent exists at the facility, where they are located, and who is responsible for them. So, to achieve this, management should define the following. First is the materials. The materials subject to accountability measure. So, ano ba yung mga dapat naka-record? Definitely, kapag mga microorganism, dapat naka-record yan, di ba? Records are maintained, updated intervals, and timeline for record maintenance. So, when you say record maintenance, hanggang kailan mo itatago ang record? Yan ba ay tinatago? Weekly, monthly, yearly, or every 5 years? Tuwing kailan ka pwede mag-backup ng data, di ba? Di ba ang sabi ko kanina, dapat meron kang hard copy and meron ka ring soft copy. So, tuwing kailan ka pwede mag-backup ng soft copy? So, those are example of records maintenance. And then, pagkatapos mo mag-backup ng soft copy, pwede mo nang itapon yung hard copy. Kasi nga naman, kapag marami ka tinatagong hard copy, masikip siya sa lab, and then, hindi rin okay na magtago ng maraming logbook sa laboratory. So, dapat meron kang hard and soft copy. Usually, yung logbook na yan, ni-scan yan. Meron kang scan copy, and then, nakasave na yan sa drive ng laboratory nyo. So, operating procedure associated with inventory maintenance, how material is identified, and where it can be stored. So, paano ba yung process on how you're going to maintain the inventory? Meron ka bang labeling? Meron ka bang coding? Diba? Kasi minsan, kapag nag-maintain ka ng inventory, for example, meron kang test tube, diba? Yung test tube na yan, may bacteria yan, nilagay mo sa ref. Hindi lang basta-basta test tube na ilalagay mo sa ref. Dapat meron yung proper labeling, meron siyang proper coding. So, ngayon, since modern na, ang ginagawa nila is barcoding na. Barcode, parang sa grocery, di ba, yung mga barcode. So, yung mga barcode na yun, nakadikit yun sa test tube. Tapos, kapag kinuha mo yung test tube na yun, scan mo lang siya, and then lalabas na yung information regarding that microorganism in the test tube. So, yun ang example of inventory maintenance, di ba? How are you going to identify the material and where it can be stored? Right? So, may mga barcoding tayo na ginagawa na ngayon. So, documentation and reporting requirements is also another part. I forgot. So, kapag documentation, when you say documentation, it means that meron ka dapat record ng microorganism physically. So, hindi lang yan basta meron kang listahan. Kapag documentation, dapat meron ka rin picture. So, meron kang picture na andito siya, present siya. Okay? Those are example of documentation. Information security. So, sino lang ba yung may access sa sensitive information? Tandaan nyo lagi, kapag information sa laboratory, it should always be confidential. So, you refer, kapag sabi mong information, this pertains to sensitive data regarding the microorganism. Diba? O kunwari, mayroon kayong microorganism doon na kaya makapatay ng tao within 1 minute. Diba? That is a very sensitive information. So, sino lang ba ang pwede makaalam ng mga ganong information? Hindi lahat, definitely, right? Okay, so example of sensitive information may include facility security plans, access control codes, agent inventory, and storage location. So the objective of information security program is to protect information from unauthorized release and ensure that the appropriate level of confidentiality is being preserved. So dapat all information in the lab should be confidential and secure. So how about the transport? Importante rin to. Kasi when you take out a material from the lab, sino ba yung tao na pwede lang maglabas ng material na yan? Okay? Kasi baka malusutan ka, hindi pala yun ang taong assign, yung pala terorista na. Binigay mo sa terorista yung microorganism mo. Akala mo, someone lang na magta-transport. Okay? So kapag transport of biological agent, meron ka dapat policy on how you're going to transport the biological agent. It should be properly documented, and meron kang material accountability, control procedure for pathogen in transit between location. When you say control procedure, ano ba yung mga procedure on how to properly transport the biological agent? Okay lang ba nakatest tube yan, abot ka sa'yo, tapos idalin mo na doon? Hindi, di ba? Dapat kapag procedure, ibig sabihin niyan, yung test tube nakalagay yan sa isang safety canister, like what you can see in the picture. Diba? And also meron kang proper containment and packaging, labeling and documentation of the biological material to be transported. So paano ba yung proper packaging? Like this one. So ito yung test tube, nakita mo, pinapasok siya sa isang container na waterproof. And then also meron ka pang isang container that is leak proof din. And then you have here an absorbent packing material. And of course, meron ka dyaang nakalagay na list of contents. Kapag list of contents, ano ba yung nakalagay inside that? So, nakasulat kung ano yung laman. Meron kang secondary packaging, and then meron ka pa rin outer packaging. Diba? Ang dami-daming label ang dami-daming layer ng packaging niya. Okay? Of course, dapat properly labeled lahat. And then, nakalagay dyan ang package marking together with the shipping name. Okay? So, yung mga package marking na yan, ito yung mga hazard, biological safety hazard signs na dapat ilagay mo dyan. Okay? So, that is how you transport. So, next is the accident, injury, and incident response plan. So, ano yung gagawin mo just in case magkaroon ka ng pagkalat ng infectious microorganism na yun. So, for example, natapon siya, di ba? Natapon yung infectious pathogen. Ano yung procedure mo? So, number one is always preserve the human life, of course, the safety and health of laboratory employees and the surrounding community. So, paano kapag nagkaroon ng sunog? Part yan ng accident, di ba? Accident, injury, incident, report plans. Ano yung gagawin mo kapag nagkaroon ng sunog? Ano yung saan kayo pupunta? Una, ano yung mga ililigtas nyo? Di ba? Ano yung mga pwedeng ilabas? Ano yung mga iiwan na lang? Okay? So, dapat meron kayong plano. What will happen? What are you going to do just in case of emergencies, accident, injury, and incidents. So, again, you must coordinate with medical, fire, police, and other emergency officials. Example of the threats are bomb threats, natural disasters, severe weather, power outages, and other facility emergencies that may introduce security threat. Importante ang power outages, actually. Kasi kapag nag-brownout yan at wala kayong generator sa special laboratory na yan, possible na yung mga microorganism ay mamatay. Okay? So, importante, dapat lagi mayroong power ang lab. Of course, severe weather, di ba? Baka bumaha, right? Or, magkaroon ng mga earthquake, natural disasters, right? And also bomb threats. So, importante yan. Dapat meron kayo mga plano, what are you going to do during those cases? Ano ba yung mga bagay na dapat unang iligtas? Besides sa buhay ng mga lab personnel, ano yung mga material sa lab na dapat nyong kunin at ilabas? So, next is the reporting and communication. Of course, you have there a chain of notification should be established in advance of the actual event. This communication chain should include laboratory and program official, institution management, and any relevant regulatory or public authorities. So, kapag reporting and communication, it means that how are you going to communicate the emergencies and ano ba yung mga policies that you have to communicate inside the laboratory. 'Di ba? Kasi yung communication na yan, hindi lang yan sa outside, pati rin yan inside. How you're going to communicate all of this information in your employees. So, you also have a plan. Dapat meron kayong plan of communication pagdating sa mga information, policies, procedure, and emergency response. Next is the training and practice drill. Okay? Of course, ano ba yung mga emergency response natin, na training natin, such as the fire drill, building evacuation drill, and associated with bomb threats. So, dapat train din yung mga tao, how are they going to respond to threats in the laboratory. So, this involve loss or theft of materials, emergency response to accident injuries, incident reporting, and identification of and response to security breaches. Example of this is the training fire drills, building evacuation drill associated with bomb threats. And then, number 9 is the security updates and re-evaluation. So, from time to time, you have to check if the process is still working, di ba? So, kailangan mo ma-check kung yung security program nyo ba is still working. Kapag hindi na siya working, let's say nalusutan kayo or nagkaroon kayo ng incident na may nawawala, ibig sabihin nun, the procedure should be re-evaluated. So, the Biosecurity program audits and implement corrective actions as needed. Audit results and corrective action should be documented. So, kung ano man yung naging problema sa lab, ano ba yung mga corrective actions that you can actually do to improve the situation para hindi na maulit. Okay? So, ginagawa siya from time to time to make sure that the security measures are still being implemented and kung effective pa ba. So, bioterrorism, this is an international or intentional use of bacteria, viruses, fungi, or toxins to injure people, animals, or crops to cause civil and economic unrest. So, kapag bioterrorism, intentional siya. Sinasadya, meron talaga mga tao na ang kanilang intention is to get those microorganisms and to spread them to the environment para mag-cause ng harm sa people, animal, crops, and cause civil and economic unrest. So, bioterrorism can be classified as overt or covert. Kapag overt, obviously, di ba, nakikita mo yung impact immediately. Nakikita siya. Okay? So, that is what you call the overt bioterrorism. Kapag naman covert bioterrorism, yung kanyang effects is actually being delayed. So, makikita mo na lang siya paunti-unti throughout the population. So, in overt bioterrorism, the impact will be immediate and there will be early recognition of the event, generally by emergency response personnel. That is what you call the overt bioterrorism. So, immediate ng kanyang impact na mararamdaman mo agad. When you say covert bioterrorism, it means that the recognition as well as the response could be delayed, allowing the disease to disseminate through the population. So, unti-unting kumakalat yung sakit through the population. That is what you call the covert bioterrorism. Now, for the biological warfare naman, this is the deliberate use of bacteria, viruses, fungi, or toxins to injure people, animal, or crops to gain military advantage or to gain political gain. Okay? So, ginagamit talaga directly yung mga microorganism. That is what you call the biological warfare. So, example of different biothreat agents. You have the Bacillus anthracis, Francisella. So, these are just example of different microorganism. Okay? So, kapag category A, ito yung biglaan na kapag nilabas mo yan, talagang makakasakit yung mga tao. Tulad na lang na anthracis, diba? That is the one that causes anthrax. Yung anthrax na yan, kapag nasingot mo yan, automatic makakasakit ka talaga. Okay? So, yung mga category C, ito yung mga unti-unting kumakalat, causing infections. So, those are examples of biothreats. Ito yung mga example ng mga microorganism.